Willkommen zu einer neuen Episode von Meikes Raumzeit. Und zwar live vom Forrester CX Summit EMEA 2026 im wunderbaren Amsterdam. Wenn Unternehmen über KI sprechen, geht es meist um Effizienz, Automatisierung und Geschwindigkeit. Doch bevor KI sinnvoll skaliert werden kann, braucht es etwas, das Technologie nicht selbst schaffen kann. Klare Ziele, verlässliche Strukturen und ein gemeinsames Verständnis davon, welchen Nutzen sie für Kunden und Mitarbeitende stiften soll. Genau darum geht es in meinem heutigen Gespräch, und zwar um die Human Foundation of the AI-Powered Enterprise und um die Frage, warum erfolgreiche KI-Transformationen nicht bei der Technologie beginnen, sondern bei Strategie, Prozessen und Menschen. Mein Gast ist Rusty Warner, Vice President and Principal Analyst bei Forrester. Er beschäftigt sich unter anderem mit Customer Decision, Real-Time Interaction Management und der Frage, wie Unternehmen Technologie so einsetzen, dass Customer Experience, Brand Experience und Employee Experience zusammenspielen. Da Rusty Englisch spricht, wechseln wir für das Gespräch jetzt in Englische. Rusty, welcome back to Meikes Raumzeit. It's a pleasure to have you back on the show. Let's start again with first just a brief introduction of yourself. Who are you and what is it that you exactly do at Forrester?
Okay, well, I'm Rusty Warner. I'm a Vice President and Principal Analyst at Forrester. My coverage is marketing technology, but that is a very general way of describing it. So I spend a lot of time with end user clients on two fronts. I spend time with marketers trying to understand marketing strategy and also the right technology to meet their needs. But I spend time with IT, enterprise architects, and data science people trying to figure out the bigger ecosystem, which includes marketing. And then I spend a lot of time with vendors as well.
So you bring all the different perspectives together.
I try. I go to conferences and tell Salesforce and Adobe how bad their examples are.
When we last spoke, you argued that technology alone cannot create genuine customer centricity. That was a year ago in London at the CX Summit from Forrester when we had that interview. In the new or latest articles or discussions, you develop more further the idea further by calling for the human foundation from AI-powered enterprise. So now my first question is actually, what has AI changed or made more urgent since our previous conversation last year?
Well, I think that first of all, what we said a year ago is still true, and it becomes even more apparent based on some of the things that we've seen happen in the industry, where if we don't bring that human element forward, the AI will tend to accelerate or scale bad practices that the technology enables. So that remains very much the case. And then what we've seen happen in the meantime is as organizations have begun to deploy more AI capabilities, they are figuring out that you can't just turn on AI. You also can't just codify processes and operations that have never been written down or programmed. So they're spending more time with people to understand how that AI could work. And that includes spending time with employees. How do employees talk with customers? How do they get customers to share information about their wants and their needs? How do we address those needs with the products and services we have so that we can align with something that might give the customer a good outcome? And then, of course, spending more time with customers themselves, but also more time mining customer feedback data. Yeah, I was just talking to a couple of guys who are doing work in the automotive space. And so when customers are looking for a new car and they're confused by all of the different options, or maybe they play around with the car configurator online, or maybe they go to a dealership and they look at all of this paper and all of this information. How can you capture that and then make that available if you wanted to create a self-service way for the customer to engage with the brand using AI? There are no shortcuts.
No.
You have to spend that time with the people. You have to capture the data in a way that you can turn it into an insight that then could be programmed. So the short answer to the question is we're seeing a lot more time spent with employees and the data employees generate, and a lot more time spent with customers and the data that customers generate, so that we can build better AI.
Yeah. And understand the data by leveraging actually the analysis, but data does much quicker for us. And absolutely.
And I can also share with you a frustration that I have with MarTech vendors in general, big ones and small ones alike, which is they think that I can just use that data to do the same old things better, faster, and cheaper. So if I see another MarTech demo where using all of this new capability, the best we can do is build an audience, create a campaign, automate the campaign, and measure the conversions. Well, yeah, I am tired of seeing those, because I would have hoped that we would begin to use all of this intelligence and all of these discussions with employees and customers and all of that data to think about how we can evolve so that marketing isn't just sending you more offers, but it's truly trying to engage with you with your needs in mind.
Yeah. You talking at this year's conference summit about the human foundation on the AI-powered enterprise. Human foundation is kind of like a big or quite abstract word per se itself. What does a strong human foundation look like? Proactive, and what does it mean actually?
Okay. Well, the hardest part of trying to understand that human foundation is to convince people that you don't start over.
Okay.
We really think that it goes back to a foundation that we've always had, but we've abused. That foundation of people, process, and technology. And too often we have jumped over people and process and written a check for new technology. And then we adapted our processes to the technology, whether or not that was a good fit. And then the people have been left with broken processes and technology that they're forced to use, as opposed to having an active role in defining processes and technology requirements. So we're actually saying that this human foundation, it's the same pillars, but people have to be the most important of the three, and not because we thought we had to include them. So that's what the human foundation really means. And then we do think that for the people aspect itself, it's no longer just employees, because people used to mean my employees, my resources, what do I have as a brand? But people now has to include not only the people in my organization, but customers, prospects, partners. People has to be a much broader concept than just my employees. Secondly, then, the processes have to be designed with people and agentic AI capabilities in mind, so that the processes are designed that way, as opposed to the processes are designed and forced onto the people. We have to design the processes, including the people and the technology, investments should only be those technology investments that directly support the people and process, not shiny new AI, let's buy some and then figure out how to use it.
Yeah. Before we come back to the three pillars, I would like to understand, what does people mean broader, actually, understanding of people. It's not just the employees. Why is that important for a company to understand? What makes the difference?
Well, I think that too often, even if a company says that they are customer focused, if you ask them what that means, it will be about the products and services they are trying to sell to that person as opposed to that person's true needs or that person's outcome. It's like, I don't think anyone enjoys looking around for a mortgage.
No.
The outcome is that I'm in my dream house and I have nice space for my new family, or whatever the situation is for the individual. That's the outcome. That's the desire. Shopping for the mortgage is a necessary evil, but a bank would probably tell you that, we provide mortgages, so we give good customer outcomes. And we really have to think about it from the customer perspective. And then that would inform, well, do I need to train people better, because this is a very human-oriented approach that requires face-to-face discussions with an advisor. It might mean that I need to work more closely as a mortgage provider with real estate agents, with local governments who manage property and land registry. It might mean that I have to figure out what aspects of this can be self-service so that I could give the customers a way for them to start themselves, but that would also need me to understand which ones are financially savvy enough to do that on their own versus ones that might need more hand-holding. Lots of different people aspects that come into play, other than I've got people at the bank who know how to sell a mortgage.
Yeah. But it changed completely the perspective of the customer at the end. You put the customer, or what he wants, his needs in the house, in the center, and then you are just part of the journey of this kind of the customer's way to a new home. So there are other partners in it. It's more the ecosystem that you actually put in place, so that in order altogether, your employees, your products, but the rest of the part around it as well, partners and other the companies that might play a role in that journey, kind of help to get the customer to be your home. Then again, that kind of
Absolutely. It's what Maxie and Joanna in particular would refer to as the customer's value network.
yeah.
As consumers, we will figure out what works, what doesn't, what fits our needs, what gets in our way, and we'll find how we want to realize value. And a company's products and services may be part of that value network, but they're only part of it. Or I think Maxie actually says, too often, if you ask a company to write a movie script and pretend that what their company does is a film, they will be the star. But in fact, every customer is the star of their own movie if you think that you're only a small part of their value network.
Yeah. To come back to those three pillars that you mentioned
Yeah.
before, people, process, and technology, you reintegrated the third group, sorry for the words, difficult word, these into a human-led strategy, human-focused operation, and human-first transformation in one of the articles. What does new framing help leaders to see the traditional what the broader way, or what do you mean by kind of reframing it?
Sure. Well, we wanted to first of all make sure that people didn't just ignore what we were saying, because if you say people, process, and tech, they're like, that's yesterday, right? No, it is still valid. It is still a very good model. It's very effective. But thinking about it, yes, instead of thinking of, again, just your employees as these resources that are available for you, think about the employees as people, think about the customers, the prospects, the partners as people. And if you put that first, then that should guide your strategy. And that should be everything from the business goals and what the company wants to accomplish, right down to where do you invest. So it should be people led in terms of the investments you make. Again, with the processes, if they are people focused, if you start with the humans first, then you're not going to have processes that people have to learn. You've adapted the processes to the way people work, the way customers engage, the way prospects buy, the way partners interact. So the processes have to fit the humans, not the other way around. And then finally, with the technology, AI gives us this tremendous opportunity to reinvent. We can't throw away everything that we have. Obviously, that's not cost effective. But if we think that instead of just adding AI or deploying a new project, if we think about how would we do things differently, then our transformation becomes human first, not data first, not AI first, not mobile first. We've used tech, whatever the word might be, in front of first for years. And I don't think any of those are the right approach, but a human first or people first approach would help with that. Coming back to what I said a minute ago about marketing, if we think that the best we can do with AI is what marketing always did, but faster, then we're just replicating, scaling, accelerating bad marketing, bad engagement. But if we would think, well, what would we do differently with these new capabilities? For me, that's a much better approach. And it may be for some organizations. If you are a small retail company and you're trying to grow, growth and selling products to grow and gain market share, if that's your strategy and that's your goal, then maybe nothing changes immediately, right? Because those campaigns and those promotions and getting your name in front of people and convincing them to buy your product, that might be more important. But longer term, it's not going to be sustainable. I mean, if the customers don't get value from the products, if you're not in the right markets, if you're not providing the right support for how you compete with other brands in a particular space, then that growth is going to get cut short. So it might not lead to an immediate change, but I think it will help guide you longer term to something more sustainable.
If we translate it in the AI strategy, and generally a human-led AI strategy, what is your advice that you give to leaders or marketers? That what do they need to understand first when it comes down to their customers, prospects, employees, and the brand promise before deciding where to invest in AI?
The easy answer is it comes down to the data that you can actually use for insights, but that's not easy. So I think it takes getting the people in the room to understand it. Again, going back to the automotive example, what usually would happen today if marketing has demographic data about who might want to buy a new car, they can do marketing. If they understood that someone visited a dealership or someone visited the website to look at a particular car, they can get more specific. If they actually used customer service data and customer feedback information about why is someone buying the car, what's important to them, is it safety, is it to hold the family, is it to go on holidays, is it to drive to work? If they took all of that into consideration, they would probably take a different approach to marketing. But it's too often a case of I just need to add another parameter to my database so I can put someone in a segment as opposed to really trying to understand the customer. Or to make it more real, um, in the health and beauty space, a few years ago, the most important data that companies would collect would be things like your age, right? Your gender.
Yeah.
They might want to know something about your ethnicity so that they could understand skin color, right? If they're going to recommend makeup. Just from what I said just there in 2026, you know how inappropriate it is to ask for any of that information or to try to store that information in a database. So now understanding how does a customer want to wear their hair?
Yeah.
What makeup products best complement their skin tone? Uh, uh, what what do we offer that'll just make their eyes pop if they're, if they're going out and want to look more attractive and feel confident about themselves? Those things are a lot more important than their age, their gender, their ethnicity, which we shouldn't ask for anyway. But how do you convince marketers to think that way? How do you convince marketers to capture what's truly important so that we're not just doing marketing as usual?
Yeah.
Or you mentioned the Zurich example, being empathetic enough to understand that the car is not just something that transports this person and we can take it away and put it in a garage to get it repaired and it's Christmas and that's going to take 2 weeks.
Yeah.
If you use the data the way you've always used it, you'll do the same old things and make the same old mistakes. So it's a matter of trying to convince people to just think differently.
Well, that sounds like a kind of a big journey, a change within the company, in a culture, an organizational change, and Ruben to have come up with the right AI strategy idea. Because if what we often see is that you have marketing, you have IT, you have service, sales, and they all deploy AI or strategies around their goals. And on top of it, maybe about the bonus and what's linked to it. But what happens when at the end of the day, AI scales just those different priorities rather than solving actually customer needs with the company?
Well, you've hit upon why people, process, and tech need to be reinvented or need to be thought about differently, because service had its people, process, and tech, marketing had its people, process, and tech, IT thought it owned the tech but didn't care about the processes or the people. You created silos with what was meant to be an integrated infrastructure. But if you think that all of those need to be people driven, and if people includes employees, customers, prospects, and partners, you can think about them differently to perhaps use this moment where we are with AI transformation to rethink that foundation, not in silos, not by departments, but in a more holistic way. Obviously a ton of work and there will be a lot of mistakes and a lot of companies will resist that. But if they don't embrace it that way, I don't think there's a way to be successful.
Do you see that we're out there in the companies, they're actually still at the trial phase, or are we actually seeing it at scale already? That companies kind of made that change, that cultural change. No, you're like,
We're not seeing that change at scale. We're not even seeing the AI itself at scale in production. The AI that I see being deployed these days is either still in experimentation or pilot mode, or if it's been deployed, it will be in a very limited way. It will be an employee assistant or it will be a customer facing assistant, but very limited and still, unfortunately, in silos in most cases.
what's missing to get to the next step?
Oh, some of the things that we've been talking about, it's really getting people to sit down and get on the same page about it. And there are some good examples. I think Zurich is a good example. Tomorrow we'll hear from Club Med.
Yeah.
And so the Club Med, they started in Brazil because they realized that most of the customers in Brazil are communicating via WhatsApp. They're not coming to the website or the app. So how do we engage customers on WhatsApp in the things that customers care most about? So they went to their customer feedback data. They realized most customers want to know about the products and the price. So they made that easy to get to in WhatsApp. And then they took everything they built for WhatsApp and made it available to the employees. So if this conversation moves to an employee conversation, they're able to offer the continuity. They were able to connect the dots. Home Depot actually does this in America. So Home Depot, the big DIY store, imagine a Leroy Merlin or B&Q, those kind of places, but bigger. So they've got kiosks in the store to help you find things, but then all the employees have the app on their phone so they can help customers find things. So it's an app for the employees, but it's designed for the employee to be able to engage and talk to a customer who's physically in the store. They've also realized that more people are doing their own projects. Also, more people are becoming independent plumbers or builders or carpenters. So if you're going to sell to a customer that has to manage a project, maybe you offer them the project management. Maybe you make it easy for them to buy things in bulk. Maybe you, instead of having them just buy from the normal website, they're going to buy where they get things delivered on a pallet to a building site or to their garage or to their driveway. They even created with AI a magic apron, as they call it, but it's the carpenter's apron with the tools. And to help you figure out, well, if you're going to do this job, here are all of the different parts you might need, but do you have these tools? Because if you don't have these tools, that job becomes much harder. And then not only trying to provide that to the customers, but connecting that to the stores, to the supply chain, to the inventory, to the delivery, to the logistics, so that everything gets connected. And it's not perfect yet, but I like the way they're thinking about it.
Yeah. Be where your customer is, the follower stays, and connecting the dots. Is that you? We heard it before in the opening keynote from James that you added the total experience. We always had the brand experience, we had the customer experience, and now the employee experience adds to the total experience. Is that kind of following as well and connecting the idea of connecting everything?
It does. And I told you that part of my job is talking to enterprise architects and IT and data people. So one of the things that I've developed is a reference model for customer-facing tech. So using Forrester's customer obsession model as an operating model, I developed this reference model with our enterprise architecture team that would help you map customer obsession and customer outcomes to the technology investments that you need to make. Okay, so we've had that for a few years. I did the first version in 2016. So we've had that for a while, right? But now what I'm able to do is we've identified the critical drivers within the total experience framework. So we know what matters for customer experience, what matters for brand experience, and what matters for employee experience. So now instead of letting a brand start with a generic customer outcome, I'm mapping those drivers. And from that driver, then we can begin to map into the model, what are your investment requirements? Also, what the enterprise architecture model from Forrester always did was it included people, process, and technology. I focus primarily on the technology piece, but I'm now working with colleagues to fill in the process and tech and people parts as well. So we'll be able to start with, say, a driver of customer experience, like the app or the website is useful and provides me the details I need and enables me to self-serve. That might be a driver. Well, if that's the driver, obviously that's going to have a heavy tech dependency. but it will also have process dependencies because once the customer decides something, I need to make it happen. And it might require people follow up from my employees depending on the situation. So how do I then start with that driver and help someone understand how to connect the dots for people, process, and tech investments with an understanding that they'll be AI enabled, and how do I build that into a roadmap?
Yeah.
So that's what I'm working on now.
Oh, there's one to look forward to. But as a closing question now, what's your advice before scaling AI across the enterprise? What evidence should a leader demand for their strategy is that the strategy is human-led, the operations are human-focused, and the transformation is genuinely human first? What is the advice?
Well, first question I would ask is how many different parts of the organization are involved? If marketing is making this pitch, I would want to know, have you talked to customer experience? Have you talked to service? Have you talked to sales? Have you talked to IT? Because if you haven't collaborated already before you bring the proposal to me as an executive, you're not ready to present to me just yet. So that would be number one. Number two, I would want to know how we're going to measure success. And I would want to measure that success three ways. One, I would want to look at it using our total experience lens or your equivalent. Does it matter to customers? Does it matter to the brand? And does it matter to employees? I would want to understand how we're going to measure against those dimensions. And then secondly, from a financial perspective, A and B. What's the short-term goal and when can we expect to see return? Because right now there's a big focus on, will the AI have a payoff? That will be important because everyone needs to know that. But B is more important, and B is, what is the longer term sustainable benefit that we'll see for the business? So it's threefold. One is three parts: customer experience, brand experience, and employee experience. The second one is two parts. It's short term and long term. Yeah.
Thank you very much. With that, I will close the interview. And I hope that everyone could take the part. You heard now what to prepare if you want to talk to your management next time. And I did like that part, really connecting the dots at the end with the people within the company, the employees, the customers, obviously, anyway, with the brand strategy and with the partners that you have in place with it. But yeah, thank you very much. Great stay.
Thank you. You're welcome.